This is IBM Museum. In this video, I'm going to go over the formatting of the 720 KB diskettes. Most people are used to the 1.4 megabyte diskettes. That's just the common thing, or just about the only diskette format that is even visible out there. And of course, in this day and age, they're quickly going away. And I bring up the 720 KB format because on the low-end PS2s, like the Model 25 and Model 30, that they originally came with the 720 KB drives, those star diskettes for those models are in that format. And there's also some other diskette option diskettes from IBM that they went through, and they didn't need a whole bunch of space for the files associated with that adapter or whatever it was that they released. So they put that in a 720 KB format, and that has gone through and migrated on to even those diskette images in this modern day and age. It's still, they're in the 720 KB format. They're marked as such just to warn people. And so there is occasions it goes through and you'll need to work with the 720 KB diskettes to format them, to copy files over, to make them into a starter diskette for those low-end PS2 models if you haven't upgraded the diskette drive, or those option diskettes. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to hide my internal webcam just to kind of show where I've got a view of the diskettes here. On the left here is the 720 KB format, and this is marked as a double density or 2DD, and it has in the one corner, this is the write protect, and this is currently with it the whole blocked. That would go through and make it so you can write to this diskette, write files. If you want to go through and protect the diskette, write protect the diskette, some manufacturers did this with their factory diskettes. They would go through and you would just open up that window to go through and enable the write protection, to make it so where you could not write more files to the diskette. You could still read it fine. Some people would go through for like the boot diskettes that you had composed, that you would go through and write protect it so you couldn't get like a virus infection from putting this on a machine that was maybe infected with a virus, and that virus transferring over to the diskette. You'd go through and write protect it. On the other side is on the 720 KB diskettes, this is filled in. I mean, there's no opening here. And the 720 KB format, the reason they call it a double density, this is a doubling of the 360 KB 5 1/4 diskettes. I mean, it's the data that this is able to hold is twice the amount of those earlier 5 1/4 diskettes that were common with the IBM XT. And even that 360 KB format is a doubling of the original PC 180 kilobytes on those 5 1/4 diskettes. And so that has gone through to when the 720 KB format was doubled. You got to what they consider the high density. And early on, they did have the high density logo of that HD. Later on in diskettes, and this is really just the only diskette that people are used to working with. I guess it is kind of muted here, where it has a high density emboss meant that you can see, but that marking in some cases has just gone away as people are kind of used to this being the only diskette. I guess just about all the high density diskettes here though I have. They are kind of hard to see, but it is embossed still on the one corner. And that was just a certified logo that they had. You had a high density diskette. It was high enough quality to be used for that 1.44 megabyte size, that capacity. And so we're going to go through and we're going to work with the 720 KB diskettes under Windows XP. And I do have my Tweener XP system out. Go through and get the internal webcam back on as well. And we're going to shift the screen over to my IBM Tweener system. And I do have a 720 KB diskette loaded in the drive right now. You can see that it's got the, well, if I had that up on the screen, you can see that that is a solid fill that's in there on that one corner. Now, some people did go through the actual capacity, the magnetic capacity of this diskette is actually a megabyte. And it's just in a formatted pattern or sequence that it takes it to the 720 KB being the IBM PC side. And there was even Macintosh diskettes that used that were 800 kilobyte diskettes that used the same diskette, since it was able to do that. The high density diskettes are actually magnetically capable of storing 2 megabytes of data, but when it's going in the formatting and everything else, that reduces it basically to that 1.44 megabyte size. So I do have the diskette. I've gone through and I've already worked with it. I've gone through and I've formatted that diskette. Under Windows XP, you can go through and you can look at the properties of a 720 KB diskette. And it shows that full capacity, in this case formatted at 713 kilobytes. That's a little bit of rounding as they kind of do for that. And I don't have any files or any storage on this diskette at all. I don't even have a volume label in there. But it does recognize the capacity of the diskette. Okay. And I could have gone through the Tools tab and everything else to do the format as well. But a right click and going down to Format in the graphical environment, we have at the top here the capacity 3.5 inch, 1.4 megabyte, and there is no other possible selection from that. There's no way to go through and select a 720 KB diskette starting from Windows XP. They just didn't have that choice in the graphical environment. And so it is possible to go through from the command prompt in Windows XP. And I'm going to go through, it's going to show more of the possibilities, the possible switches of more than just diskettes with this, even though I give it the format A /?, and that's just trying to figure out all the so-called switches, all the possible ways that you can use that command. And I'm going through and piping that through more, just because it's more than one screen full. And so a lot of this is the hard drive format section. Basically, if you're going through with the file system with diskettes, you're just working with the FAT format. And but you can go through, and the format, and then volume is which disk that you're working with. It'll be an A colon in our cases of working with the diskette drive. And so you have the okay, let's go through and press the space bar just to get down to the second screen of information, showing more of the diskette aspects. Now there's the /F colon and then the size, and they have specifies the size of the floppy disk to format, and then parentheses they've got the 1.44. Now with the older DOS, and we'll show that going through and using the dual boot capabilities of this machine to get into DOS. But if we do a format A /F colon 720 and do enter, it's going to tell us invalid parameter. That /F colon 720 is just not recognized. So what we actually have to do, an up arrow goes through and repeats the command. We can do a /T colon 80 /N, which is the number of sectors, being 9. And on the high density diskette, the number of sectors is 18, doubling that. So it's the same number of tracks at 80. But this will go through, and I'm not sure if it tells us to enter, put a new diskette in the drive for drive A, which we have, and press enter when ready. Now it's going through and verifying. I probably could have given the /U switch to where it doesn't try and read the diskette or anything like that. Oh, and I've already formatted this diskette, and now it's telling me invalid media or track 0 bad, when I did go through and format this diskette previously. And such is the woes of older media. I maybe won't have the example of being able to go through and trying to format this diskette. And I can hear the heads clicking a little bit. It's probably going to go through and, okay. Yeah, so it got to the initial track and then just quit. But we would be able, if the diskette would be willing, we would be able to format it with the /T colon 80 /N colon 9 instead of using that /F colon 720. And my point is that the command prompt is you're able ultimately to format the diskette at 720 KB. Why did Microsoft go through and just kill that /F 720 KB switch? It does the same thing. They could just, it's not all that much more code just to leave that in. And that's the code or the switch that people were familiar with the 720 KBs. It was the easy way. You don't have to remember the amount of tracks, amount of sectors. You just went through and gave it that size. So if this were able to format, of course, we'd see it step through doing the how much percent complete it was, and then go through and verify and ask us to put a volume label on at the end. I do have other 720 KB diskettes. These were actually giving me read errors earlier, but let me see, because I have a bunch of these, and I think they are actually formatted up in some other operating system. But let me see if I can go through and if these will format for us at all. Okay. Still the verifying the 720K. I don't. Yeah, it's going to give us the same error. And normally this drive, and I've gone through and I've used this before, and we might even see what DOS is able to do with these diskettes that are otherwise failing on us in Windows XP. But and you can encounter a very similar situation if you use, of course, there's not any real physical systems with physical diskette drives on them now that are issued these days. Where you can, I've got a Windows 7 system with a diskette, but I mean, just about every one of the systems that was Windows 10 level that I have is, there's 90 diskettes. In fact, they're starting to go through, and they've also lost any optical drives. The earlier CDRs and DVD drives that came later, those, a lot of time there's not even those optical drives on the system. But this is a drive that I've used before to do the 720 KB. With the USB drives, you're going to have the cases where they may not wire that connection. And what it is that the USB connection goes to a diskette drive or a GoTech the same way, that it doesn't necessarily have the density select pin wired for those USB adapters. And so there's not an ability, a lot with those really generic USB diskette drives, to go through and to format a 720 KB diskette either. Just with the limitation, I mean, they went through and they're probably doing the cutting corners just like Microsoft, taking away that /F switch, or the /F 720 KB, 720. They're going through and just, why do we need the density select wired? Why do we need to code for it or account for it to handle those odd situations of 720 KB diskette? So they went through and they don't account for that. And it probably makes it for a less expensive device or an easier to make device that they only have it deal with one style of diskette, 3.5-inch diskette of the 1.44 megabyte. So let's go through, and I should have started this process anyway, just to go through. We're going to do a restart. And you notice with the audio drivers, I got sound from the system now, and it's got a little speaker up front. I don't have any other external speakers connected to it. I don't have my JBL Creature speaker system rebuilt yet. That'll probably be real soon. I'm just kind of still looking through some of the speakers I can put in those for those satellite speakers. And it is still a little bit warm in here. We're having, in the background, it's probably not very audible, but we are having some lightning strikes and thunder. A little bit of rain come down in the area. And this startup process, it does take some time. I go through and I've actually got it to where I could even boot from USB sticks, like Kali Linux or anything like something like that. And that's in my boot sequence, and that's why it goes through and beeps there and talks about that boot sequence. Okay. And going through for the, it's not going to find anything. I don't have anything set for Ripple at this level over my network, that a remote initial program load or booting off the network. What Intel calls PXE. And I'm just looking at my time. Okay. Okay, so we're going down to the MS-DOS selection on the menu. It goes through and we're starting. Okay, and we're fully within DOS. This is that dual boot capability that you could probably do the full version command, but the DOS 6.21. And so we're going to try that same diskette that failed before. And this time we're going to go in and do that. In fact, let's look at the switches that are available. Okay. Okay, and you'll notice that /F:size specifies the size of the floppy diskette format, such as 160, 180. I even forgot about the older 160 and 320 KB formats. The 360 KB format, which, you know, with the XT, and that was a pretty strong format, or relatively well used around that period of time of the XT. 720, 1.2, 1.44, and the 2.88 megabyte. So this format command under DOS recognizes all those different formats. And we didn't even need to give it the more command because it fit it all. Even single-sided diskettes. I mean, that's just amazing. And it does have the track and sectors. And so let's try :720. We have the diskette in the drive. And same prompt. Enter new diskette. Press enter when ready. And the same drive. And I don't think this is just happenstance for, got the green access light on there as it goes through and does the diskette. I don't think this is just happenstance that all of a sudden the diskette decided to work from getting that track 0 bad under Windows XP. And there's probably a little bit more error routines in there for the 1.44 megabyte diskettes and the 720 KB. Could be why Microsoft is going through and just kind of, was pushing that away, starting with the Windows XP. But under DOS, I'm able to work with that diskette that otherwise I'd formatted initially under Windows XP without any issues, but I couldn't go through and reformat it or work with it again. And under MS-DOS, it's going through and it's successful. So there's just there's a reason why I have this machine set up for dual boot, and that's being one of the good reasons is it's able to work with under the format, work with all those formats out there. And there's the volume label, 11 characters or enter for none. And asks us to if we want to format another, we're going to say no. Okay. And we could do something like Directive A for the same thing as kind of the properties. And I think I'm wondering if there's even a verbose mode that you can go through and you can have it show the same details it did when it formatted it. But we have a working diskette, that Windows XP kind of was throwing up little barriers for us creating. So, but that's the ins and outs of the 720 KB format. Apparently there's some qualifications to even Windows XP working with it. You can't work with it on the graphical side. You try the command prompt, you may get the same errors that I did. And then you're also aware of those USB diskette drives that are, for all intents and purposes, a lot of them are just for working with the 1.44 megabyte drives. So it was a nice little experiment in going through and working with these diskettes. If you thought that this was informative, click on that like button. If you enjoyed the content, I appreciate seeing those likes. That recent video of me with that big failure of the clip over CPUs, it got the most likes. I can't understand. People like seeing me fail, I guess, or they, I know they appreciate that content, or they're trying to give me some moral support of that going south on me. But that got when I looked it over earlier, it was at 10 likes, and that's the most likes I've had on a video since I think I've done the channel. And it just one of those crazy things. But if you are not subscribed to my channel, please consider subscribing. Pass the word about my channel on, and we'll be covering content like this. I'd love to see more subscribers. I think the last time I looked, we're at 320, and that's varied a little bit over time. But I keep churning out videos. I'm going to try and keep getting subscribers. But that's all I have for now. This is IBM Museum. Thank you.